Haven't done one of these videos for a while, but I thought I would do one now. Not quite sure what I'll call it, something like what I take in a winter through hike or something like that. Definitely won't be for everyone, this video. Quite niche, but hopefully for a small number of people, moderately interesting. So I'm just going to go through kind of in quite a lot of detail some of the stuff I take with me on a kind of winter-ish hike. So I'm actually just back today from the Cairngorms, and probably I've already released the video for it, but I've just come back this evening, and before I unpack everything and put it away, I thought I would go through with you what I take, so you can kind of look at that video if you want to see the actual hike. But I'll go through it with you. Hopefully it's interesting, and some of the decisions that I made as I went. So I think what I'll do is I'll start with my shoes because they're here. So I went with trail runners because I could see there wasn't loads of snow or ice. I could see that from the webcams and other pictures. So the majority of the walking I knew would not be in snow or ice. So I went with the trail runners combined with, I knew there would be some, and you'll see that up at Loch Shechen, there was some snow and ice, and I very, very nearly had to put on my crampons. So these trail runners here, these are the Topa Terra Adventure 3, I think they're called, and they're fantastic, really good. They've got a better sole than my previous pair, which was the Ultra Lone Peak. They weigh about the same. I'm not sure that they've got better durability because they've already burst down that side, and the same on that one, but really comfy, wide foot toe box, which is important for me. Yeah, we'd really recommend them. So that's the Topa Terra Adventure. But the reason I could go with the trail runners, even though I needed a crampon, is because I had the Catula KTS crampon. So that's an extremely flexible crampon that lets you use it with flexible footwear like the trail shoes. If I was going to be doing anything technical, anything really steep or anything prolonged, then I would need to take a proper winter boot and crampon, and you've seen me do that before. But I knew that in this section, on this walk, the most I would have would be short sections and not overly steep, and certainly nothing technical. So that was why I chose to wear them, and it was the right decision to make. Don't have them here, but they're in the wash already. But I had on my standard walking trousers. They're like a Craghopper Kiwi Pro walking trousers, a Rab mix merino and polyester, I think it is, base layer, and then I had on my MacPack Nitro, which it must be in the bag actually. I'll show you that. So I'll unpack the bag. So on the outside I had my ice axe. So that's the Camp Corsa ice axe. I think it weighs 210 grams, something like that. It is or was the lightest ice axe on the market. So I needed to take it because the same as with the spikes, I knew there would be some snow and ice, so I had to take an ice axe, but I did take my lightest one because I was not expecting to use it. And that proved to be the right decision. In here, in the front pouch, I think is just water bottles. And that's meths, fuel. I'll come to that later. on the outside. So that is the fly sheet for my tent. That's the tarp tent Scarp 1. The fly sheet was really wet this morning, hence why it's on the outside of the pack. I had 3 tents that I could have taken: the Lux Hex Peak, the tarp tent Scarp 1, or the Terra Nova Voyager. The Terra Nova Voyager is the most stable, but it's also the heaviest, 2.4 kilos, something like that. So I was keen not to take that, given that I was walking around 70 kilometres over the 3 days. The Hex Peak is a great tent and I absolutely love it, but you're really dependent on good pegging points when you've got a hex, a pyramid tent, and I wasn't entirely sure what the pegging points would be. So the Scarp kind of was somewhere in between that. It's got a bit of self-structure because of the arch pole and the pitch lock corners. You do still need good pegging points, but maybe a wee bit less dependent on them than the Hex Peak. So that's why I chose the Scarp, kind of a balance of stability and weight. I knew that the wind would be strong. There was a storm coming in that they called Storm Otto, and it passed through last night. I knew it'd be down low, but it would still be very windy, so I needed a very stable tent because of that. So and the Scarp was good. So I took the Scarp, and that's my walking poles there. In the top section, in the brain as they call it, that's got it's got a battery pack, a cable, and a whistle. That's the Nightcore 10,000 battery pack, I think the lightest battery pack on the market, or it was. I normally also have in there my compass and my head torch, but I took them out on the train, but they would normally sit in there and they stay up there, so they're really easily accessible. The head torch is the Petzl Actic Core. I think it's got 3 settings, so I think this lowest one is like 10 lumens or something like that, and that lasts for 50 hours. So you can have that on all night, every night in the tent. Then it's got 100 lumens that you can walk on for I think about 8 hours, which is plenty if you do need to walk in the dark. And then it's also got I think 250 lumens for a real spotlight. So I really like that. The 3 settings are kind of ideal. Being able to walk on it is obviously important, but having that really long life in the tent is important. And it also has these core batteries that you can take out and charge individually, and I've got 3 of them, so it does make it really easy to switch out the batteries and keep it charged. So that's what normally sits up top in the brain. I've messed about with the order slightly because I've been moving stuff around in the train. In here is normally my spare clothes. That's my, but I took them off for the train journey. But so that's the MacPack Nitro. That is Polartec Alpha fleece, and I really rate that. That's a fantastic bit of kit. I think it's 155 grams for a fleece that's warmer than Polartec 300. Much lighter, dries really quickly, really good at regulating temperature. So that's brilliant. And I've still got that Rab base layer, which is the merino polyester mix. So that's what I was actually wearing. The spare clothes, this is actually in the spare clothes. So spare clothes, I've got a hat, Montane Dart base layer that kind of wore in the tent. This is Mountain Hardware Air Mesh Hoodie. So it's even lighter than the Alpha Top. I think it's 130 grams, and it's similar in design and kind of purpose. I've only had it about 6 months, so I've not really used it enough to be able to say how good it is. I think it might be as good as the Alpha fleece, but time will tell. But I like that. So that was some of the spare clothes. The other spare clothes, took 2 down jackets, and a pair of Buffalo Tech Light trousers. So, a pair of boxers and spare socks. So that was my spare clothes. So I took quite a lot of spare clothes, for not really spare, warm clothes to wear in the tent. I knew it was going to be sub-zero in the first night, and I was slightly concerned about being cold. I also knew it was going to be wet at other points, and so the stuff I was wearing might get soaked, and I had to have a complete change when I got into the tent. So that's quite a lot. The Buffalo Tech Light trousers, 2 down jackets, the Air Mesh hoodie, and the Dart top. There's quite a lot of weight there and quite a lot of clothes, but yeah, just because of the conditions, I felt that I needed to take that, and I think that probably proved to be the case. Could probably have got away without one of the down jackets. That would have been okay. So the other thing I've got here is my bag of electrics. That's just got like those spare core petrol batteries, so you can switch them out into your head torch. It's got, that's just a phone charge cable. It's got, this is the Petzl Bindi torch, so that's a backup torch if that one breaks. I think it's important to have a backup. And microphone, GoPro batteries, and a thermometer, and a spare GoPro. That's the electrics. That is my Gore-Tex socks, which I do wear usually with the trail runners. Food bag. So for food, I mostly have kind of cereal bars and stuff like that through the day, and then I had 2 of my homemade dehydrated meals that I'd made last autumn, and they were still good. This is now February, they were still good. I had chicken korma one night and pasta bolognese one night, so I was pleased with them. They were really tasty. I made a big batch of them in the autumn and they've kept well. So that's the food. A platypus to carry water, a wee cup. This is a titanium cup, 650ml cup, so I take a slightly bigger cup. I tend to have a bigger drink in the winter. And my homemade titanium cone, which you maybe see in the pictures, which looks extremely homemade, but it did work well. Put it together like that. You'll see it in the video. Super light, and definitely increases the efficiency of the meth stove. So yeah, that's the wee mess burner. So it's a speedster stove burner with the homemade titanium cone and the titanium cup, and the cup just kind of sits in, and a wee bottle of meths. So that's the cook kit I've got here. Might as well show you all the details. It's a Soto lighter, better than a cigarette lighter that some people take. It's really reliable, and you can adjust the height of the flame, and it also goes really hot, so if your mess is cool, it's very cold and the mess is cool, it immediately lights it. I do also take a wee backup 8-gram titanium flint and steel, just in case something happens to the lighter, and those wee finger things to stop you getting burnt fingers. If you've watched any of my videos, you know that I absolutely need a good coffee in the morning before I start the day, so that's the the jet boil coffee press, and you can just kind of fold it together, and it just so happens it fits my cup perfectly to give a kind of French press for coffee. Love that setup, and having good coffee on the hill is important. So that's the food bag. You're getting all the details today. This is my chest pouch. So normally in here I'd maybe have my snacks. That wee wind monitor thing, the Skywatch Explorer 2, and my Garmin InReach Mini. And then sometimes, like a pair of gloves or something else, but that's normally what sits up top in the chest pack. In here is waterproofs, which were well worn. It was very wet at points and very, very windy. So that is the Berghaus Packlight Gore-Tex Packlight trousers. Can't remember how much they weigh. 300 grams maybe a wee bit less. A decent weight, but not super light. But I've had super light ones before and they break. Your trousers take a bit of a battering, so I think they're a good balance. This is the Haglofs Lim Gore-Tex jacket, which is fantastic. It's something like 280 grams or something like that, so it's really light for a Gore-Tex jacket, and it's brilliant. I've used it all through the winter and absolutely love it. Would really recommend that. And then that is my Hestra gauntlet gloves, which were maybe a wee bit overkill for this walk, although on the first day I would say not, because in the first day there was a lot of snow and sleet and hail, and it was really cold, so I was really glad of having them. So a really big heavy duty glove. The thing though that I would say is these dubiously named handcuffs, the Hestra handcuffs, they are well worth it, because see when you are out and you need to take your gloves off and you're doing something with your poles or getting a snack or doing something with the camera, trying to hold your glove under your arm or whatever, it's such a faff. Those handcuffs are well worth getting. So that's rainwear. 2 clothes cell foam mats, just in case my air mat should break, then there's a bit of insulation there. In here it's a buff, a pair of ski goggles, and a backup pair of gloves. That's buffalo mittens, didn't end up wearing them. So that's, I didn't wear any of that in fact. That's my windproof, so I did wear that quite a lot. If it's not raining too much, then I can just wear the windproof and it's not as warm as the Gore-Tex jacket. That is the inner for the scarp, and a polychrome ground sheet just to add a bit of protection to the bottom of the tent. pair of gaiters. If it was snowy, then I find it easier to wear gaiters with the crampons, didn't need them. That's my first aid kit. I'm not going to go through what's in there. That was a liner for my sleeping bag. The Thermarest X-Lite air mat, full length. That's got my toothbrush, contact lenses, paracetamol, stuff like that in there. So this is the X-Bed pump sack, which lets you inflate your air mat like the Thermarest air mat, and then I also use it as a waterproof mat during the day to keep stuff dry. This is my sleeping bag. I need to get it out to air it anyway. So this is the Cumulus Panyam 600, but I customised it to put a bit less down in it. I think it's got about 520 grams of down. I really like it. It's a brilliant bag. It weighs about 875 grams, I think, from memory. So the reason I took that, so it's really good. Cumulus, great make of sleeping bags, and I love that you can customise them. I've got 2 of their bags. I decided to take that sleeping bag rather than my quilt, which I do prefer a quilt, just because the temperatures were going to be sub-zero, and I was a wee bit concerned that the quilt would be cold. It would have been cold. It's only rated to about 2 or 3, so it would have been cold. So I took that, which is rated to around 0, but it was forecast to be kind of -3, -4, and then wind chill, and although I was in the tent, it still gets colder when it's very windy, so I was expecting it to be a good bit below 0, which it was, hence why I took the extra clothing. Probably could have got away with less clothing or got away with just taking the quilt in the end, so you know, I made that decision. It wasn't that big a deal, but I could probably have got away with taking less. That is a Nylofume pack liner just to keep stuff dry. That is just like a bag of repair tape and a spare shoelace, that sort of thing. That's just a sleeping bag liner thing, and that's a pillow, my X-Bed pillow, 50 grams, very light. And I think that's it. So, oh, and the pack itself is the Gregory Optic 58, which is decent. Don't love it, don't hate it. Worked well. So I think that's the main things that I took. The kind of main decisions were footwear, got that right for sure. The Cthulhu spikes, or crampons, they're a full crampon. They're great because normally you couldn't be wearing trail shoes at a time like this if you're expecting any sort of ice or snow, really. You can't get away with micro spikes in the Cairngorms, but those crampons are really good for that. So that was the right decision and really good having them. The tent was the right decision. The scarp was a good balance between weight and stability, and it was very windy last night, so I was glad, certainly glad I had the scarp. Kind of wished I'd had the Terra Nova Voyager, but I'm glad I didn't have to carry it that far because it is heavy. And then the sleep system. As I say, I could have probably got away with less, but I generally always err on the side of caution. Overall, I think the base weight Probably I'll put it up on the lighter pack. If you're really keen and you've stayed watching till this point, then you can follow the lighter pack link and you'll see the full list. I think it's about 10 kilos, which is quite heavy, or very heavy. I prefer being down near 5, but given that I had sub-zero temperatures and had to take a heavier sleeping bag and warmer clothes, I had very strong wind. So very strong winds to contend with, so I needed that tent. And actually that reminds me, I've got the stakes, sorry. So I took 2 of these massive Lomo snow pegs. I think they're 32 centimeters, so they're really secure. And then this is a Treadlight gear peg bag, which is great. Had it for a long time. And I took mostly the Easton 9-inch nails, although they were coming out last night. A couple of titanium pegs, nails. I think that's it. Oh no, I took a couple of the Weir MSR Blizzards as well. I didn't really know what sort of ground I'd be camping on, so I had it covered. But yeah, the high wind last night, I took a lot of pegs, you'll see, and some pretty big pegs to cover that off, because I knew that I'd need to really bolt it to the ground. Yep, so I think that's it. Oh, toilet trowel, and one of the most important things, the paper maps. So I navigate using an app on my phone, and I've got a backup battery for my phone, but I do think it's really important to carry the paper maps as well. So I've got them for the 2 areas I was walking through, and I've got the compass obviously as well. So I think that is it. So yeah, given that the heavier kind of tent and pegs, the heavier sleep system, the crampons and ice axe and ski goggles, there's a fair bit of kit within that. That's why it came out around 10 kilos, which is quite heavy, but it's not too bad given all that was there. So hopefully that's of interest to a couple of people. And you can see, ask any questions in the comments if you're still watching. I'd certainly be keen to hear what other people take or what they think of any of this gear. Thanks very much for watching.